see how everything looks now. Okay, well I do that and it messes up my Twitch category anyway. I just have to change it every time. But whatever. Okay. I think that looks fine. Okay, so I made a post, I think 2 days ago, announcing, or a little preview for this, but what I've been working on, because I've been kind of bored with the current set of TFT, and anytime I try to do something, it gets hotfixed before it's released, so yeah. We're gonna focus on a different set, but I also happen to not like set ton, so instead I decided to make one of my own. And this is a bit more of a creative project. It's been a lot of fun, and it's been very insightful for learning how the set is designed and how the traits and units are balanced around each other. And overall, it's just been a great deal of fun. What I have here is the 1.0 version. So this is a rough overview. This set is not complete. Uh, Even though like there's a lot of framework and there's a lot of things that are like filled out and it might look complete, there's a lot of things here that need to be revamped, uh, further developed, reworked. Uh, yeah, but as you can see, this doc is pretty lengthy, and it's probably going to get a bit longer. But what I'm going to do today is go over what I do have for now, because even though this version is not perfect, and I will continue to iterate it on it now and over like the next 2 days, this version is pretty interesting, and I am kind of proud of how it turned out. Just for like one, my first time doing this, and two, uh, as just a basic set to begin with, because I don't even think it's that terrible. I think as far as everything goes, this rough version is acceptable. I'm not gonna say it's good, but it's acceptable. And there are definitely a lot of interesting ideas here and concepts, so yeah. And we'll be seeing a lot more of those. So, I'm going to go over the set's mechanic, traits, units, and I think that's it. But and then also my notes for what I plan to change slash like the things that I'm already aware of that I plan to work on. So, and the goal is maybe to do those like fixes and to go through it and improve the set. To do that on stream. I was kind of thinking of doing the whole thing on stream and like up to where I am, have that had been on stream, but there's been a lot going on, so we'll see how I feel in the future in terms of this. But uh, yeah, let's just get started with this set preview. The set is called Shimmering Seas. It is a pirate-themed set. Uh, there is a lot of exploration, a lot of I don't know. I mean, it's like an adventure-y, piratey theme. And I mean, I don't know. The best way to explain that is to go into the mechanic, which is kind of how the whole thing is built around. So the set mechanic, and there's a couple. There's a lot of them that they interact with each other. I kind of just broke it down into different parts, but the main set mechanic is voyages. Uh, at the start of every stage, you get to choose from a list of islands you want to sail to. These islands replace the PvE rounds where you normally get your loot, and instead it's like replaced with like a custom loot. So each island has different loot. So you choose different islands based on what you want to get on the next PvE round. The drops are going to be normalized in the sense that like what everyone gets is going to be the same thing, but in the corresponding loot tables. So like at every island, you're like if one player gets like two gray orbs and a blue orb, all players are going to get two gray orbs and a blue orb, regardless of which island they visited. But what those orbs will contain will be tailored towards the islands that they visited. And yeah, additionally, uh, each island had the loot tables. When you visit an island, you can discover clues and tips and stuff to visit other islands, and eventually you can look for powerful rewards, treasure, so on. But depending on which islands you visit and depending on what you find, and like these rewards will be like semi-randomized, but like it'll be like balanced and like there'll be like a table. So yeah, some island examples: higher chances for gold, higher chance for like unit drops. Like so, like instead of getting gold, you get like a three cost or whatever. Higher chance for components, spat pan, artifacts, support items. Uh, and all of these are based on like the actual orb drop. So like you're not gonna get artifacts every single time, but if you get like a gold orb drop, it's more likely to be an artifact. And then otherwise it'll just be like I don't know, gold or like whatever. Like if you don't get the gold orb. Or if you get prismatic orb, you might get two artifacts or something. Additionally, you also can get a stowaway, which is like kind of a set mechanic. Not really like it's a set mechanic. Uh, these stowaways are like they're recruitable units that you get from visiting like certain islands that they're on, and yeah, these are special units, and I'll go more into that later. The next mechanic is events. I guess specifically weather events. But I mean, it might not necessarily. I mean, I could add other stuff, but weather events. Throughout the game, there is a chance for various weather conditions to occur, influencing combat. These weather events will be forecasted 1 to 3 rounds in advance and impact all boards on the rounds that take place, and they will last for 1 to 3 rounds. So basically, how this is going to work is, let's say you're on round 2-2. I don't know. Yeah, 2-2. You'll get like a forecast. It'll be like, oh, we see some gale winds off in the distance. That means in the next 1 to 3 rounds, uh, you will have a weather event that is gale winds, and then when they take place, they will last 1 to 3 rounds. As for what these events are, they are combat buffs or debuffs that will affect both you and your opponent. All boards are going to be affected equally, so like all people will see the same message. All people will be affected by the same events while they last. Uh, that said, some events might be more beneficial or more detrimental to certain comps. Uh, but it is what it is. Other, it's like it should be fine. Uh, and yeah, these are purely combat based. Oh, actually, not purely combat, like mostly combat. Uh, and yeah. So I think what's good about this, you will get notice, so you can like kind of prepare, and then it's like it affects everyone equally. and it's not like, let's say, like encounters or what's the like hacks, like those previous mechanics where it messes with the game in terms of resource inflation. Or these are purely combat. The resource inflation probably is prevalent, but it is in like this stuff. So yeah, these are purely combat. Some of these events, uh, the list could expand and be reworked, but Gale wins. All units gain 10% attack speed at the start of combat and after every 5 seconds. Uh, Basically, both teams get the clockwork. Hurricane. All units attack 10% slower and they start to combat mana reaved, meaning their first cast is uh, it costs more. Rejuvenating Mist. All units, and I have this notes to kind of convey what it is. Every 2 seconds, units regen, max health, and max mana. Maelstrom. At 10 seconds into combat, all units are knocked up for 1.5 seconds and take 10% max health 2 damage. Uh, and like I said, these all apply to both boards, your board and the enemy board. So, but some boards can probably handle this better than others. Scorching Sun. All units are burned and wounded for the whole combat. Full Moon. Moonlight empowers random hexes, and then standing on the hex, you can get 5 mana per second and some damage amp. I mean, these obviously you will like because the events happen over the course of multiple rounds. Like it'll happen in the planning phase, so you will be able to see these hexes, so you can adjust your positioning to cater towards this event. And there, I might make more that are like that are planning phase oriented. Blood Moon. And this one's a little iffy, but I mean you have to have some of those like heavier RNG ones. Uh, Blood Moon randomly empowers 3 units at the start of combat, granting them 40 damage amp and omnivamp. Okay. I know this is like something personally I would not like this one, and a lot of players wouldn't like this one, but it's like the kind of thing where like it kind of has to exist for the sake of like those like higher RNG moments that a lot of like other players like. A lot of casual players kind of like these kinds of things. However, it is balanced and it's less frustrating on the fact that it only lasts a couple rounds at most, and it's probably not going to be that common. It'll probably be pretty rare. But yeah. Another one, same boats. I think a lot of like high elo players would not like this one. I would not like this one, but it would be fine to exist and it'll be rare, but I mean, yeah. Uh Shimmering Seas, set name, yeah. Uh Units have a chance to drop gold when they die. And I will have it specifically units, not allies or enemies. So this works more like that one portal from set 9 where you are rewarded for really bloody combat. So if both either enemies or allies die, you get the gold either way. So like if an enemy unit dies and it drops gold, both players can collect that gold. So that's like a pretty interesting concept. I don't know if that's the best way to approach this, but it is the way something that I would like to see, because the one-way version is definitely not very fun because that's just pure RNG. At least the other way, you're kind of like incentivized to, or at least it only affects. There's only 4 parts of RNG instead of 8, because instead of every individual player getting RNG drops, it's 4 different combats. So I mean, obviously, certain like there's it's I don't know, but this just has to exist. Uh, okay, set mechanic 1.2, which is the quest system slash stowaway system. I kind of went over that a little bit, but when you visit islands, you have a chance to discover clues and stuff, and you can trigger quests. Uh, I mean, I have this named quests and stowaways because they're kind of a little bit of overlap. I might have quests that aren't tied to stowaways, but the stowaways will have quests attached to them. So there's that. But the point is, visiting islands can trigger quests that lead to powerful rewards. Some islands may contain stowaways, which are special supportive units that grow stronger over the game. Stowaways come with their special quests that can lead to significant benefit for your team. So not only will stowaways get stronger by themselves, but if you complete their quests, they will provide like more value to your team. Yeah. So now we're gonna talk about the origins. Uh, I think I think most of the trait designs are like okay. I think the actual trait distributions are what need to work. Like they need to be fixed a little bit. But yeah, as you can see here, I have the trait description, the breakpoints, and the units that they correspond to, and it's color coded by the cost. So the units of abyssal origin, uh, you have Aatrox, which is a 1 cost, Fizz, which is a 2 cost, Pike and Tom Kent, which are 3 costs, and Cassidon, which is a 4 cost. Yeah, and then you have the actual trait breakpoints. So, Abyssal. At the start of combat, and after every 2 seconds, Abyssal gain max health and damage amp, occurring up to a certain number of times. This trait was inspired kind of by Elderwood. I mean, the whole theme of this was to have like units that gets like bigger. Uh, so I kind of wanted something that's like increasing max health, but like multiple times. Because they're kind of like this is like sea creature kind of thing. Like these are units of the sea, so they want to be like a imposing threat. So they keep getting bigger and stronger and more menacing. So this is kind of similar to Elderwood, except instead of being 5 times flat and being different stats, the number of times that you get the bonus stats will vary based on the trait breakpoint. So at 2, it happens 4 times, and then 4, it happens 5 times, and so on and so forth. Another thing to make aware, even though I don't have it like documented like yet, I have these breakpoints like going up pretty high because I do plan for certain elements to make getting like spats and pans a bit more often than normal. So having these high breakpoints will like it'll need to exist. Obviously, I'd have to bounce around that, and I will do so later. But I mean, just for transparency, there's only 5 units, but there's an 8 breakpoint. Uh, while that might change, the whole general idea of being able to access 3 spatulas may not be that unreasonable. So I do want to keep that in mind. But yeah, the 2 breakpoints, 4% health, 3% amp, 4 times, so that's 16% max health total, 12% amp total after 8 seconds of combat, and then this is more stats after 10 seconds, 14 seconds, and then 20 seconds, and then you have a ton of stats. So yeah. Harbinger. This is pretty interesting. I think the trait that this most resembles is like experiments, kind of. There might be others, but not really any that come to mind. But the whole point is that each unit has their bonuses, and then you can activate these bonuses. And these are like basically mini traits in themselves. They benefit your harbingers. So yeah, you get like a bunch of mini traits you can activate, and yeah, the 2, 4, 6 breakpoints. You gain this talisman. This is what activates the traits. Right, the vow, which is the trait. So the 2 breakpoints you get one trait. The 4 breakpoints you can get two traits. The 6 point you can get three traits. This is supposed to kind of mirror experiments. That said, I'm not sure if giving the third trait is the correct option here, as like the Seraphim experiment didn't give a third bonus. It instead like made them stronger and stuff. It was like kind of balanced around that. And I would have to take a look at this. Otherwise, I'm pretty happy with the actual design of these. And then, as I said before, there's 6 units, but gonna be a high breakpoints. Not every origin's gonna have a high breakpoints, but while I'm still planning, I need to at least consider which ones can be Exodia traits and which ones aren't. Based on the actual theme of this traits, which these are like Harbinger, it's like the actual skin line is based on like the omens of death, and yeah, so this is supposed to be like a really menacing and threatening trait, uh, and it fits in with the theme in that it's like it's like another source of impending doom that exists within the pirate adventure and the voyages. So you have all these different bonuses. You have Karthus, uh, kind of the one I kind of balance this trade around. A way to bring back Phantom into the game. Not because I think it'd be a good idea, but because I think it would be funny. Now, obviously, I have to find a way to make that acceptable. So I think, first of all, I mean, I could do like this. Kind of the only balance lever that exists for this is the actual breakpoints slash the number of units that it affects. But I think anything more than one is a bit problematic, so yeah. But you have Vow of the Clockwork, which gives a shield at the start of combat and then attack speed. Vow of the Chemist. All Harbingers gain Singe's AoE effect. This is a passive that Singe the unit will have. It essentially just does damage over time, like Singe's poison. But I'll get more into that when I go over the actual units. Vow of the Righteous, gain 80 AP every 2 seconds. Vow of the Shepherd, summon a ghoul to aid your team in combat every 6 seconds. These ghouls are like voidlings, probably a bit weaker, but I mean they'll continuously spawn. Maybe I'll make it like so that they're even like weaker than that, but you get them more often, you get more of them. I don't know. But the point is, this summons more units. Nocturne, Vow of the Nightmare, which is a 5 cost. It basically messes with his 5-star or his 5 cost effect. He has a unique trait called Nightmare, and it has an interaction with that. And then an emblem, which is just an execute. Trying to find a way, something that fits the theme of the traits. I think this is pretty good. Not too difficult to balance. Obviously, I have to tune all of these around each other. But until I figure out the overall strength of everything, like all the other traits, then I have to tune it more specifically. For now, I'm pretty happy with the theme of this trait. However, this might need to get some work. If I swap in and out units, these would have to be like adjusted accordingly. That said, there aren't that many skin lines that fit this theme. Like, I made the traits around the skin line, but the skin line only has like 4 units, and then I have to find other skins that kind of work. So it's really hard to sub in and out units, and it also kind of messes with the balance of this. However, I can, with some better design choices, not have problems here, but I'll get into that once I get into the unit designs. Elegance. So these are like well, they're like stylish, like fancy pirates, led by Misfortune and Ezreal. Going into like the early history of this trait, I originally had it so that uh, Misfortune and Ezreal were like the leaders of separate uh, like vertical lines, but just like I mean, with like a lot of the changes and stuff, we ended up on this. So yeah, the theme is they're just like fancy. All of these they have like the debonair, they have the crystal rose skin lines, or they just have like really fancy skin, like nice, like stylish skin lines. As for the trait, uh, this trait is kind of a combination of Anima Squad and Academy. Originally, I was kind of thinking of just like reprinting Anima Squad on the basis of like it kind of just perfectly matches how I wanted this trait to work. I think better than the Anima Squad trait did for the Anima Squad theme back in set 8. This is specifically set 8 Anima Squad, not the current one. But I kind of needed to add a bit of a twist because I don't actually want to reprint everything because that's kind of boring. So yeah, instead of I think that one was on kill. This is on cast. None of these units are very frequent casters except for Ezreal and Vayne. So, however, there will be other units in the set that can act as batteries. And I bring that up because like I said, the trait I combined this with was Academy from uh set 6. And that one you gained APAD and you gained more per cast. And even though in set 6 the trait vertical wasn't very good for most of the sets, I think I mean okay, so something that I played during the sets that most people did not play but was like actually like secretly super broken was using a emblem to create a battery to farm these stats, and you literally just get like hundreds of AP and AD like for free just by having a unit that can like spam cast and generate this stuff. So I mean these numbers are pretty low, but they'll ramp over the course of combat. Uh, and yeah, you also build style every time they cast, which permanently gains max health, which is, again is like a ripoff of set 8 Anima Squad, except it's a bit nerfed. I think it's easier to build style from casting than it is to build. I forgot what the other thing for what the thing was called in Anima Squad, but uh, that was for killing units. So I think that gave 5 max health. So this is a little lower, but yeah, this is double scaling traits. But it's like not that crazy, and it's all based on casting. So really, you're looking for units that cast very often, which I mean, these units will be doing that. So it should be a fun trait. And you have 2/1 costs, 2/2 costs, 3 costs, 2/4 costs, and a 5 cost. Yeah. Dreadway, which is the Gangplank crew trait. Dreadway is the name of his ship. Originally, in the theming, this was going to be based on like a bit more of a lore centric thing. So like the actual name of Gangplank's crew is not Dreadway. This is his ship, but the crew is called the Jagged Hooks, and then MF's crew is called the Sirens. However, to properly design traits around those, it's kind of like a lore event, and it's kind of similar to Arcane, where you have like all these like other units from Arcane. I think to do that justice, you'd have to do something similar. So I'm kind of not going to touch that because even though I can add like some of MF's crew and some of GP's crew, it's not really my place to do those kinds of things within this like, like, heavy lore events. Like, I think like an official event would have to do that justice. So yeah, but Dreadway, the theme of this trait, this is like the more like ordinary pirates crew. They're all misfits and dangerous. This trait is based on them being very difficult to kill. They are, no matter how hard you beat them down, they are still standing and they will still fight back. So this trait gives them durability and omnivamp. This trait doesn't do very much for damage. It doesn't help them kill units faster, but it makes them much harder to kill. However, a lot of the other traits that they have and a lot of the tools they have access to will give them the damage that they need, so it's not that's bad. Uh, Additionally, uh, when they score a kill, it gives them more omnivamp. So like it starts at 8 and then you get a kill increased by 25. So that's plus 2% omnivamp for every kill, and then so on and so forth. Additionally, after every 10 kills, you gain loot. This loot isn't like a lot, but it's to help snowball a little bit because you don't have actual damage. I gotta give them something, and I mean pirates gaining loot kind of fits the theme. So this will accelerate your comp a little bit, but it's not anything crazy. Like early game, this probably is like 1 gold every like 2 rounds or so, or 3 rounds. It's very little. And as the game progresses, like at level 8, you'll get a little bit more. You'll get to go to 9 a little bit faster and stuff like that. Yeah. Another thing is that this trait has the mirrored trait web to the MF crew. That was an intentional design decision. So you have the 2/1 cost, 2/2 cost, 1/3 cost, 2/4 cost, and 1/5 cost. Uh, that is a design decision I plan to not change, I think. Even though this isn't a lore event, I do want that rivalry between MF and Gangplank to come through. Even though, like, in a proper lore event, like these would probably be like 5 costs and stuff, just based on how important they are. However, the actual like spells I designed for these units don't really fit those like 5 costs. So I mean, I'm because this is my set. Like, I mean, it doesn't really matter. Like, I can just make them whatever I want. But that is something to keep in mind. Next, we have La Illusion, which is a trait based on a skin line. Uh, I don't remember when it came out. Like, I think within the last year. It's a pretty recent skin line, but it's based on like the Day of the Dead. So this is like a Spanish crew. Uh, and there's gonna be a bit of Spanish theming just because it kind of fits the pirate theme. Like I don't know, it kind of just coincided pretty well. But yeah, uh, yeah, I think the skin line is like based on like Day of the Dead and also like fire. So they have these like really like pretty designs and like lots of bright colors. But yeah, so the actual trait design comes with. I mean, it's very fire themed, so I thought making a fire trait would be pretty fun. However, I have to like actually balance that. So at every rank, you get damage amp. Like that's just a generic thing. But then you also get like a burn. This is the same burn that like normal. So like it's the same that you get from Morello, red buff, stuff like that. Select units burn the enemies they damage with their attacks and abilities. So at 2, it's just your strongest units. At 4, it's all of them. At 6, all allies, and the burn is stronger because, believe it or not, Riot can control how strong the burn is. There are different burn effects that do more damage than others, but most people are familiar with just the basic burn, which is the most prevalent by far. But yeah, it's an interesting concept. And then another 9 traits, even though there's few units. This is one of the ones most likely to disappear, and I'll explain why. real shortly, but I mean this one is like just a super giga burn that like just like for reference, a 10% burn means you do 10% true damage every second. So this is like assuming no regen or like shields or stuff like that. This just kills all units within 10 seconds, which is pretty cool. That said, we might not get this far because of a problem in the trait web, because I'm subject to what units exist within the skin lines. You have a problem where you realize that uh, there are not many frontliner units in this theme, especially with the decision I made, which is that Nidalee is a backliner. Uh, yeah, if I kind of thought a little bit more ahead, I could have made Nidalee a frontliner and kind of fixed more of the problems that I have, but because I designed Nidalee to be a backliner, you only have two frontliners, which is kind of problematic, which means I have to do some kind of changes here. But yeah, you have Kiana, one cost, frontliner. I mean, deep, like she's a carry, but I mean, she's a frontliner. Nidalee's a backliner, Ziggs is a backliner, Draven's a backliner, Nar's a frontliner. Uh, like Nar is more tank adjacent, but even though he's not a pure tank, he's like an off tank, so it's like again kind of problematic. And then Ronaldo is backliner. Next we have Armada, which is I mean it's the Armada. It's kind of symbolizes the government, except not really. There's no government here, but like you have something to symbolize that, like kind of like the Marines, kind of like I don't know, but like they represent like enforcement. So like everyone who's like pirate-y should be like wary of the Armada. But I mean, yeah, I wouldn't say that this Armada are the good guys either. Okay, so Armada, they gain a shield for 10 seconds, and after 10 seconds, your team gains reinforcements, and Armada units gain attack speed. So you get your shield, you get your attack speed, and then you get a summon. I haven't designed what these summons are, but like you're just gonna it's a unit. It does something. This is the summon trait, or the main summon traits of the set. And I just had to give a little bit of combat power, or actually not even that little, but like a decent combat power in the trait. Give the unit some agency. Take a little bit of power from the summon units compared to like other sets, where like all the trait power is in the units. And I also delayed it. It's at a static point in the combat every time. But yeah, so it's not like as snowbally as like some of the other summon traits usually are in different sets. But yeah, I think this is okay. And then this is another trait with a bit of a problematic trait web. I'll explain kind of later when I get into the units. But you have Warwick, who's a frontliner tank. Callista, who's a backliner. Xin Zhao, who's a frontline tank. Alistar, who's a tank. And Kled, who's a melee carry. As you may have noticed, there isn't that much damage in this trait. And this is a problematic point because this trait doesn't have many, like it's based on one skin line, which is the Marauder skin line, but there's very little options I have to add into this trait. However, I mean they do exist. Like there are things I can add. However, it's not very much. But it's not as bad as like with Harbinger, where there's like pretty much nothing I can do besides getting like really, really creative. Like there are at least some options, just not many. Crystalline. This is the cash out trait. I personally don't like cash out traits, so I do not know how to design this. I could have just wrote reprint Heartsteel, because that's probably like the thing that people would like the most. I think that's the trait, the cash out trait that people think the most fondly of. That said, it doesn't really fit that well with the theme. If anything, I would kind of align it more with the voyages and stuff. However, that makes it more like Cipher, and I mean I don't think people are too happy with Cipher. I don't know if it's the breakpoints specifically, like when you cash out, or the actual like cash out distributions. I think it's a bit of both, but I think one thing that people like about Heartsteel is that you can choose exactly when you start like playing around it, whereas these other traits you don't really have that kind of agency. But yeah, that said, this is just some cash out traits. The theme is based on around these are like the island guardians of like the islands that you are exploring, and they have access to special loot, and they are like guardians, and they yeah. So obviously, this is just separate from the actual treasure that you can get through quests and stuff, but it's just like the theme behind it. Next, we have Primal. This is a reroll trait. These are based on like units that are like kind of natives. So, like let's say, I guess lore wise, they'd be like natives to one of the islands or something. But yeah, this is just a primal theme. They're like kind of like hunters and like I don't know, like I don't know how to describe it. It's like stuff like Nidalee, but like 'cause I don't know how many people are familiar with the skin line, but it's basically champions that like the theme like of the skin line is like to be like Nidalee, who's like just like a hunter in the forest and stuff. But yeah, this is a reroll trait. It's kind of inspired by Punk, but not really. Uh, Primal gain bonus health and attack speed. It's I guess a combination of Punk and like maybe Conqueror from set 13. Every round you gain stacks of hunt for each star level of primal units fielded, and then at 10 hunts you increase these stats a little bit. And yeah, so as you reroll, you get more stats. And the longer you have these stats, like the faster you get these stats active, the more stats you can get. And yeah, I think pretty good for a reveal trace, which is again something that I personally don't play very much, so I kind of had a bit of a hard time coming up with this. But I think this is a pretty decent approach to a reroll trait. And then at 7, which you can access, but it's like not very easy. Kind of like similar to 5 family, where you get loots. And this is just like straight up Conqueror at this point. However, if you look at the trait, like the units, this is like very, very clearly meant to be a reroll comp. That said, I might like 5. I'm not sure if I'm gonna keep it at 5 units. I might decrease that, but I'd have to poke around with the units that exist. Next, we have Desperado. This is like a Western theme. I mean, the skin line is High Noon. This is High Noon, but this is like but like they're pirates. So like they're like cowboy pirates. Yeah. So Desperado, they steal random items from units killed in the previous round. Stolen items decay after 3 rounds, or after 1 run on the bench. So the way it works is, let's say your Desperado unit kills an enemy unit and they're holding a Warmogs. If you do not have like a stolen item, you get to have that Warmogs in the next round for up to 3 rounds. If you decide, I don't like that item, you can keep it on your bench, and after 1 round it disappears, and then you can steal another item. So at each breakpoint, you can only have up to a certain number of items. So at 2, you can only have 1 item at a time. But as you go into the trait, you can have more items. So at max, you can have up to 3 items from this trait. That said, you're not necessarily going to have all 3 items at the same time. If, let's say, you want to reroll one, they last 3 rounds, which isn't a lot, but it's not like little. So like, if you get a good item, you do get to keep it for a good amount of time. But if you get something you don't like, you can sack it. Every time you steal an item, you get more stats. So by base, you get some AD and AP. Every time you steal an item, you get more. So if you re-roll the items, you can steal more items faster, so you get more stats faster. However, you are losing out on the combat power of just slamming that item onto your unit. So there's a bit of a trade-off. There's a bit of strategy involved with this trait. And yeah. Uh, yeah. So you get up to double the stats. So whatever the base breakpoint is, you can get up to double from the bonus you get from stealing items. So in order to get the max stats at 2 Desperado, you need to steal 13 items. So this is the max total. So you get 13 more total for a sum of 26. And here's you can get 25 more for a max of 50, 40 more for a max of 80, and so on. And then Exodia breakpoints. This is a trait because I might have to poke around with like decreasing some of the units, the amount of units in the other traits. This is one that might gain, so they might get. This might turn into like a 7-unit trait, probably not 8, but possibly 7. Dragon Tamer. This is kind of the epitome of a I gotta put in units to fill out the trait web, and also like it kind of works. This is like a tempo summon trait, so you only have access to this later into the game, but yeah, it's like a rapid version of like trainer. And yeah, there's only 2 units. You get both of them. You get access to a 3rd unit, which is the summon. It does not contribute to the units limit. Yeah, Dragon Chambers, they summon a Zapmaw, who share some of their AP. After every round, all allies feed 1 snacks to the Zapmaw. They grant him health. And the star level increases every snacks. This is trainer, but like expedited. It's less reroll centric, and it's more just tempo. So it's all allies. It's not based on they don't do Dragon Hammers. So like basically, the higher level you are, the faster you're gonna feed the Zapmaw, and obviously this is gonna cap. So like, it's not gonna get that much like stronger compared to like a trainer. Probably balance wise, I don't know. But the point is, this is like you get this early and you just like turbo snowball. However, that said, this is the trait most likely to disappear. Like this is the yeah. So we'll see how it looks a week from now. Fate Maker. This is kind of similar in theme to the Crystalline, except these are like I don't know how to describe it. It's like these are guardians of fate. They are responsible for the situation that's brought everyone to these islands anyway. But yeah, they are the controllers of chance and the voyages and these islands. At the start of every round, fate makers change fate and they bring about an additional random positive event for your team or a negative event for your upcoming opponent. If an event is occurring naturally, it cannot be selected. So basically what this does is it triggers weather events. It just does one of these. And yeah, if it's already active, it can't choose that one, but like any of the other ones, it can choose. And it's like it's only going to be beneficial, so it's either going to be a positive one for your team or a negative one to the enemy team. And it's just random every round. And I mean, you'll know in the planning phase which weather event is happening. Your enemy would have to scout to figure that one out. But yeah. There's only 3 units. It's pretty simple. Uh, yeah. Now we have some of the unique origins. We have Ramus' origin. Ramus is a 5 cost to set. That this is real. Uh, yeah. So Ramus is like a custom unit that's uh I did it like it doesn't really fit the theme, but like I've like even before I had the idea of making this set, I had this idea for this Ramus 5 cost variation. Uh, and like it's not that terrible to fit in this set, so I included it. But like this could also have gone into any other custom set. But yeah, this trait it's really simple. It just kind of like is a buff to Aramis. He's a frontliner. Uh, he's a frontline tank, but also like a carry. I don't know. The closest comparison I have is to like sets 7.5 Terra. Oh, this is like a Gargoyles BT user. But yeah, he's pretty tanky, and he can do a lot of damage. And yeah, what he does, he gets a shield and he taunts all enemies. That's it. But it's very simple, but this would do a lot for him already. So yeah, Construct Blitzcrank. He's another 5 cost. Also doesn't really fit in the theme of the set, but I do plan to flush it out a little bit with some of the quests. I might do the same for Ramus, but like the difference is that like I kind of planned for that with Blitzcrank in the design for him, and whereas Ramus I might just do it out of necessity. Blitzcrank can switch between Paragon and Rogue form, which changes their spell. Obviously, that alludes to the fact that this Blitzcrank uses the Paragon, the Lancer Paragon and Lancer Rogue skin lines. And you just switch between the two forms, and they're different. One of them is more tanky, supportive, and the other one is more of a carry. Then we have Agony's Embrace, which is Evelyn's unique thing. This is just a like I made this just on the basis of Evelyn having a unique passive that kind of makes sense for it to be its own trait. Evelyn still has 2 traits, so this is like a third trait. Whereas for these two, this is their origin, but this is just an extra origin for Evelyn. Otherwise, she's a Desperado. Yeah, and lastly we have Stowaways, which I kind of went over. These are units. They act like normal units. They take up your spot, but they have stuff. The Stowaway actual buff, like the trait, it just like says that they get stronger over the like naturally on their own. You can't like get them from your shop, so this is like a way for them to get stronger as the game progresses. At the start of every stage, they style up. I think in terms of power, Stowaways are like 1 costs, like maybe 1.5 costs. So at the end of the game, they'll be 4-star, but it's not like you're getting like a 3-star 4 cost, or like I mean like a 4-star 3 cost. I mean, like these are like not gonna be that crazy in scaling, but they as the game progresses, they will get stronger. I might change it so it's not like they go up in star value, but maybe they like just get stronger. I don't know, but like the point is, because you can't get them in their shop, once you have them on your board, they need to get stronger somehow. That said, you also I think I don't know what I'm gonna do in terms of like them being like sellable or not, because they don't contribute to your traits. So maybe you might not want it. Maybe once you recruited the stowaway by accident or something. We'll see. But yeah, the point is that is how these are supposed to be. In addition to their quests, so they'll naturally get stronger through their traits, but then they have their quests. Their quests aren't, I think, going to be super unit specific, but they're going to be more like team buffs. So like they'll get like an actual like effect. Or is this just like stats? This is just like, oh, you get more AD and more health and stuff. Classes. This is, I mean, it's just classes. So, Musketeer. Musketeers, they gain attack speed. Additionally, Musketeer's first attack every 8 seconds is empowered to deal bonus damage and apply different effects depending on which Musketeers you have fielded. So, if you have all of them fielded, this will apply all of the effects at the same time. If you only have like these two, it'll only apply these two effects. So, basically, one of the mini games of this trait is to mix and match which effects you want, and that's how you kind of choose. Like, it's another aspect to choosing which units you fit in. Obviously, some things are gonna naturally fit together. Like Lucian and Senna are both Desperado, so you're gonna naturally play them together. But let's say you want Burn, you can play Misfortune if you want other effects. Yeah, but all the other units. So with this and another trait, I've kind of been swapping back and forth between this being attack speed and this being AD. With this being AD, this trait becomes really, really powerful. With this being attack speed, it's like slightly weaker. So yeah, it kind of depends on how everything else turns out. But with this trait and like it's the other AD backliner trait, which is Headhunter. I've just been swapping back and forth between which one gives AD and which one gives attack speed. I mean, as well talk about this one now. Very generic. They gain AD. Every time a Headhunter kills an enemy, they gain more. Very simple. And the thing is, these are all AD units currently. And these are all AD units currently, except for Lucian, who's like a hybrid unit. But depending on what adjustments I make to some of the other units, that might change. So specifically, like some of these units might be swapped out, or they might become AP or something, or the same thing from here. So I still need to like look at it. And this kills AD, but she might become AP. So I need to like look at that. Obviously, I can't give the trait with the AP units AD. They have to get the attack speed. So yeah, I need to think about that. Hold on as I drink some water. Swashbuckler. This is like kind of the assassin trait. Swashbuckler abilities can critically strike. They gain bonus crit chance and damage, and their abilities can crit. That's redundant. Additionally, they will riposte their first instance of damage from each unique enemy, retaliating with a global attack. So basically, the first time they're damaged by each enemy unit, they will not take damage and instead retaliate with their own attack. And this is just an auto, but depending on the unit, that auto can do a lot. And obviously, it's going to interact differently with different units. So this could be very, very useful against burst units who can do a lot of damage to that swashbuckler, or if it's like a unit that has like a very, very tiny proc, like let's say they have a damage over time, it's gonna do barely anything, but at least you get that guaranteed auto, so it's like something. This effect is something that's like I think really nice, and I think I definitely want to keep this, but I don't know how to balance it relative to this. So this is just an assassin, but this effect, I don't know how to gauge how strong it is. I I don't know if it's like incredibly broken or if it's like not strong enough. So I will need to look at that a little bit. But otherwise, these stats are like pretty decent. For an assassin trait, these are like pretty good. So this trait might overall be overtuned, but I had to like look at that. As for the distribution, this also might be revamped a lot. So there are some units that I would really rather not remove the trait from, but the problem is like it's kind of messy with like which one. Like for a long time, I had a problem with not having enough units to get this trait, but a lot of units being qualified. But the problem is that a lot of the units are of similar costs, so I can't fit everything. So like even though there's a lot of units that deserve the swashbuckler trait, I can't make that many units swashbucklers. I think one of the problems is specifically Pike, but I really kind of want Pike to be a swashbuckler, but there is like him like this creates problems. Well, I'll address that later. Buccaneer. This is the 80 bruiser trait. Buccaneers gain durability and AD. While they're below 60% max health, the durability is doubled. While their current target is below 60% max health, the AD is doubled. Pretty simple. Another one with the exact same problem, where I had trouble filling this out just because of how things were designed, and obviously when I go back and fix things, it'll look different. But overall, trade design, I think this is very simple, but I think it's pretty interesting and fun to play around. And this part in particular makes it so that I can probably include backliners. You know, I don't have any right now. It is open for backliners. And even if I don't include any, for like spats and stuff, you could still put this on a backliner and it'd be pretty good. Privateer. This is pretty interesting. I was planning for this to be like a supportive, tanky trait, and then I realized I accidentally recreated Altruist from sets 11, but like, I mean, I'm not gonna like back down. Like, I just accidentally created the same traits. But yeah, Privateers heal the lowest health ally for 15% of the damage they deal. Their team gains its armament and magic resist. My trait stopped there, and then I realized this literally already exists. So gotta do something about that. Lower the support this amount, double and then double it for privateers. Additionally, the first time an ally dies, they gain attack speed. So this part is a more selfish buff, and then this is all the support stuff. Yeah, this trait comprises of both. It's just kind of like the jack of all trades trait. It includes frontline carries, backline carries. No, I mean, all these are like off tank carries. So like they're like tanky frontliner. Okay, this is just a carry that is I couldn't fit anywhere else, but the rest of these are like not carries, but they're not tanks either. I guess Rumble's like kind of close to a tank, but yeah. I think this kind of fits, like this trait choice fits well into that kind of theme of it benefits all of these units, and yeah. And then obviously these Ezreal and Oxen are just backliners. So you have a mix of APAD, frontline, backline. It's like this trait design can fit pretty much any unit that does like any kind of damage. So I think that's pretty good. So if I need to dump more units into this trait, I can. However, that wouldn't be very good, but like I can. Like, yeah, I don't know. Which stock? This is the this is the basic AP trait. Uh, by design, if you can see like all this stuff here. This is kind of more of like an origin. However, I really wanted this to be played like this, so it is it's a class and not an origin. Uh, so this just gives AP, just generic AP trades. But additionally, you also will get spell effects. These spells work like how current set 14 Animal Squad works. So Uh, Anima Squad, they have like their stats, their resists, their damage amp, but then they also have like the weapons, and then the weapons they cast periodically, and they do stuff. This will work exactly the same way, pretty much, except it's just they're different. But at tier one, you get the tier one. At tier two, you get the tier two. At tier three, you get the tier three. All of them are independent. You randomly pick between the three. Oh yeah, the other difference is that instead of just picking the one that you get every time, it's just gonna be random between the three. So you'll get a mix and match of all of them over the course of combat. But there's three tier one spells, three tier two spells, three tier three spells. And yeah, all these are pretty interesting effects. They are all different. This is current target, weakest enemy, largest clump, do damage. This is a support ability. It's a shield. I'm not gonna have two. I think I only have one other support one, but like, I do want some of that, but I don't want like that many support things. 'Cause it kind of becomes like I don't want to add too many multipliers to the trait. Yeah. So this is a shield, piercing bolt that does damage and shreds. Explosion of magma deals damage over time. Storm strike deals damage and the mana reaves and hits multiple enemies. This is the other support one. Uh, gives attack speed and some regen. And then this is plague. This is like set 13 Malzahar, where it just like creates a permanent dot over time, and then when the unit dies, it spreads. So this one, like, it's not as crazy as it seems because it's only one unit at a time and it's like kind of slow. But I mean, it exists. And then you have this. Overall, I'm pretty happy with this breakdown because you have frontliner, and that's normally enough for this kind of trait. If you want to make normally with all these AP traits, they want to include frontliners with tank traits to enable the vertical. So like with current set Seki, you have Shyvana and you have Kabuko and you have Mordekaiser, or not Kabuko. You have Shyvana and Mordekaiser. They're both techies, but they also have uh, Bastion and they have Bruiser. And then this is the same thing. That's one of the core things, because in theory, the techie vertical is to be viable. Uh, so they designed the units with that in mind. That's why that exists. So the same thing here. And then the same thing with like Slayer, for instance. You have a Bruiser Slayer and you have a Vanguard Slayer. That's to enable the Slayer vertical to be existent. This is the same. Kassadin is a melee, but he's like a carry. He's not really a tank. I'm also not sure if he's going to stay here, but in the current iteration of this set, he is a Witch Doctor. However, there is a bit... Like, a lot of this might change. However, with the actual trait design, I'm kind of okay with it. Obviously, these will need to be balanced, but I don't have numbers here, so it's like, it's fine. I mean, I have some numbers here, but might be a lot. I don't know. That number seems big. But I mean, yeah. Overall, the design, I'm pretty happy with it. Brute. So, I had to make the decision of whether I'm going to reprint Bruiser like literally every set has, or I'm going to do something different. And originally, this was going to be a different trait. Like, this description was for a different trait. However, I decided to make this the Bruiser replacement. So, there is no Bruiser in this set. There is Brute. And, funnily enough, this is, like, I mean, Riot might take a page from this book in finding a way to reprint Bruiser without naming it Bruiser. But this one, it's a health tank trait, but it's a bit different. Allies gain health, flat health, not percent health. Brutes gain double the amount. The first time a brute is reduced to half health, it rapidly regens over 3 seconds, and it gains durability for the rest of combat. So this is more of a, you break them down and then they heal back up and they get stronger. So this was my original design for the Abyssal origin, but I kind of wanted to avoid a pure tank origin. Especially when I have the Dreadway origin that's like already kind of close to that. But at least it's like drain tanky and not like pure tank. So you're getting the effective health in the form of regen. This is counterable by anti-heal, but it's like overall stronger than Bruiser, because like if you look at Bruiser, like 2 Bruiser, it's 20% max health, but Brute has this health plus this, but this is regen, so like the value is like volatile. This can be way less than 20%. However, it still scales with your max health in the same way that Bruiser does. So it's a pretty interesting approach to this. There's a world where I balance it just on the HP and like just sack the durability entirely. But I kind of wanted to keep this here just as a potential balance lever in case this approach doesn't work out. But yeah, I think it's pretty cool. And you might notice that at 50%, they might regen 60%, which is like a bit redundant. But do keep in mind that it's over 3 seconds, so they might still take damage. And also, if they're affected by anti-heal, they're also healing would be reduced. So that also is something to keep in mind. So while this is potentially wasted, in actuality, it's not as likely as it would seem. Like, there's a good chance you actually will use all of the regen here. Next is Reinforce, which is my armor magic resist frontline trait. It's similar to Sentinel, Bastion, all those. This is very simple. Gain resists, and they gain more every second. And that's it. Pretty simple. By base, it scales less than like Bastion than like Sentinel does, but as combat progresses, they become more of a threat, and they will eventually outscale those traits. So, if your units survive a long time, they will be more tanky than like other like traits that are the same. Next, we have Steadfast, which is the last tank trait. This is like because like Gary said, there's like at least in all modern sets, they have a health trait, a resist trait, and a miscellaneous tank trait. This is the miscellaneous one. Normally it's either shielding or durability. This one's just durability. Very simple. They gain their ability doubled for 4 seconds after casting their ability. And then that's it. Plain and simple. Yeah. Headhunter, I already talked about, but this is the other AD backliner trait. There might be some swapping around with all this stuff, especially if I change some units. But yeah, pretty simple. I think pretty easy to understand, and I think as far as classes go, like I think this is perfectly fine. Invoker. This is a reprint of Set 6 Scholar. I noticed while looking at previous traits that Invoker and Scholar have been swapping back and forth as to what they do. But this specifically is just straight up a reprint of Set 6 Scholar. I think that trait was one of the catalysts to that set being like as fun as it was, because it was a supportive trait. And then a lot of the units were kind of supportive units. So it made flex play really, really fun. So, and like the modern approach to TFT is just literally this, but instead it's like what Dynamo does is it just halves the supportive amounts and then makes it so that the actual amount is for like the actual Dynamo units get more. However, this is like equally distributed across all allies. So it's obviously something that isn't like in line with what I think Riot standards are now. I don't think they would want to do this because it kind of like it's pretty annoying to balance. However, I do think that's doing what this does specifically is it encourages flex play. You can include a lot of you have a lot of options playing with this trait and playing other stuff, and that's one of the reasons. Like, because people have been saying right now that flex play is like pretty dead, and in the modern TFT, like the past few sets, flex play is pretty dead. It has not been viable for a long time. The way to make flex viable is to make supportive traits and to make certain options flexible. You make flex based on specific things being strong but not limiting. So like for instance, specific tank traits being strong or specific support traits being strong enables flex play. In contrast, if you to make verticals, like vertical origins, usually that does not enable flex play because there's not that many units you can fit. But for instance, if you like in the current sets, if you're to do like if like right now, I think on the patch 6 Vanguard is really good. So you can in theory flex around that. However, there just aren't enough things that you can fit on the Vanguard board. However, if they were to do that with like Bastion or even Bruiser, suddenly it becomes a lot more flexible because you flex around one thing that's strong and then everything else is like enabled by it, assuming the other things are balanced. So this will work similarly in that whether this invoker trait is strong or weak, you can obviously play around the invoker units themselves, or you can play around carries with that benefit from this trait. And obviously these numbers can change. Like I just took the same numbers. They might need to be rebalanced a little bit. It's like 20 min every 2 seconds. That's kind of a lot. But I do think this would be a good experiment to see how this affects balance and meta progression. Because without specific individuals fast forwarding the meta, everything gets really stale in modern TFT. Like once everything's figured out immediately, like there's just no diversity. As a result, it leads to the developers and balance team to become much more conservative and, I mean, conservative with what changes and then volatile with the thing that they do hit. And it's a cycle of there being too significant and too insignificant changes. Okay. Devastator. This is a technically flexible trait. It's a backline trait. Uh, this is one that wouldn't have a spat or anything. This is like a specific thing for these units. However, which units actually fit here can be changed. So this has synergy specifically with their AoE effects. All of these units have AoE spells. So what it does is when they cast their spell, the AoE that exists from their spell basically repeats. It basically recasts their spell after 1.5 seconds, doing a fraction of the damage, but it's true damage. So like after 1.5 seconds, you get a 15% base power version of the spell again in true damage. And obviously, it's kind of hard to, like, these numbers like seem a little low, but I mean it's true damage. It's kind of hard to judge how strong it would be. So I'm kind of wary of like doing numbers in a set, right? Like in a situation where numbers actually can't be tested, and also there's also no point in testing them unless like people would actually play this. But the general idea is you add true damage after delay, and like the visual idea I have for this specifically is that like it like comes out from the ground. So like they cast a spell, and like let's say I think most of these actually, now Karthus's come from the ground anyways, but like Vhagar's spell, I guess to foreshadow, is his W. So that comes from the sky. But then after he impacts the ground, this trait would like come back from the ground, and it just explode from the ground. So Karthus's thing kind of does that already, but I mean, it'll just do it again. It'd be like a white glow, and it like explodes from the ground. And then Nightmare. This is Nocturne's unique trait. This is essentially Nocturnal. It just adds that to his spell. And then if his thing is already active, it instead changes it. Because Nocturne's Vow just has this existent for the whole combat. So that Nocturne actually has a trait. It just makes him CC immune for the duration of his spell. Units and skins and traits. So I have a breakdown of the units and the like specifically the skin that corresponds to the units that makes them fit in the trait. So the Elegants have a combination of Debonair, Crystal Rose. You also have this Risen Legend Vein, which is from the Uzi Hall of Legends. But it's not the Kaisa one. It's the other one. Because I don't think people know that. In addition to the $500 RE and Kaisa, they also have another skin in there. So Uzi had Vayne. And then I forgot what Faker's was. But yeah. And it shows their traits. So this all this exists for me to organize what can fit and what doesn't. So I've kind of already talked about these things, so I'm kind of going to skip over that, but I'll go into the units. But this is just a breakdown of what everything is and how I can look at what fits within the traits or not. We can take a look at some things, like, for instance, I referenced like certain traits being problematic to exist within other units. Pike, for instance, he's a swashbuckler. Fizz is a swashbuckler. Or I designed him to be one, but like I can't make this and this. Both of these can't be. And same thing with Kassadin. So like this is problematic because it prevents these two from being it. So obviously you'd have to do some unit swapping in order to fix that problem, or just redesign units. A lot of the units chosen for this set, like I tried to pick a lot of units that don't have a lot of TFT representation. So as it really what made me want to pick like Fizz to be in the set. I don't particularly like Fizz. I kind of wanted him to have a bit more representation, so that's why he's here. But the problem is, how does he fit in? I gotta make something work. As well, Fizz has this, and like these are both very strange traits to have, but they like kind of work. And you can balance his numbers to make him more like that. This kind of makes him more of like a bruiser, which honestly is fine. Yeah. But should I mean, when I make some changes to fix some problems, most of that's going to happen here. So now we have the units and spells. I color-coded this just so I know what exists and what I need to make more of. For the most part, these are in the order that I made them, but like some stuff has been changed. So yeah, one costs. In total, there are 60 units. That matches what the current set has. I forgot where it was said, but like most sets are supposed to have within like 54 or so to 60 units. So this is on the upper end. I cannot have more units, I don't think, but I could remove units. I could have less total units. I think the current distribution is, like I said, it matches the current set. So we have 13, 13, 13, 13, and 8. However, some sets have, a lot of the times, sets will have like 12 or maybe even 11. And it'll have like some adjustments to these. Like I think some sets, I think last sets had 14 one costs. and 12 4 costs. So for the same total, but like, I don't know. I kind of just mirrored what the current set had, just because I didn't want to like poke around it with something I wasn't familiar with. So one cost spells. Talon is a melee assassin carry. It's not so much of an assassin, but he's a melee carry. Uh, this is Talon's W. He throws the fan of daggers in a cone. It does damage, and then it returns, and it does more damage. Like it's just his W, but the design around this is that he's melee range, so it's gonna do more damage to his main targets because they're gonna be hit by more of the blades. So I have this thing here, but like they're still like, gonna take like they're still gonna be hit by all three blades, so they're still taking double damage. So it's like kind of an assassin ability, but it's a little bit of AoE. Originally, this was gonna be like a reprint of like I think it was set 8 Talon, but I didn't. That Talon was kind of annoying. Like I think like I like the design, but it's kind of hard to like build around. So I feel like this is a lot more safe, a lot less frustrating. Sivir, this is just Sivir Q. Uh, there's been no version of Sivir that has done a Sivir Q, but yeah, it's a long range ability. I guess the closest thing we've had to that is the Blado Ring animal weapon, which I mean it literally is a Sivir Q. But this is her spell, and it just does a lot of damage. She's just gonna be an AD caster. That's it. Does damage and returns. Aatrox. Aatrox is a tank. Uh, he does AoE damage, and he knocks units up for a little bit. So he's like tanky by virtue of what his traits are. This is a CC ability, but it's like not gonna be that high that duration. It's got like a pretty high mana cost. Uh, I guess this most closely resembles set 11 Rek'Sai, except no delay, but the damage probably is going to be less, and the duration is going to be less. Overall, like, cause like an AoE knockup is like pretty hard to balance around for one cost, but like you can make it simple, make it the less least amount possible. You can do stuff like that. So you can increase the mana cost, but it's a way to do something. Because the other alternative was just to make him do something like, oh, he stabs and he heals, but that's kind of boring. I kind of wanted to make some variety within the spells of each of the frontline tank units. So Kiana. Kiana's a carry. She has a passive that heals her when she damages a burning unit. Now remember, Kiana is a La Illusion, so she has access to burn pretty easily. And when she attacks or does ability damage to a burning unit, she heals off of it. So basically, she has built-in healing. For active, she just uses her Q. But this can hit multiple units, so it can heal her multiple times. Rise, blue buff user, he basically EQs, pretty much. He fires an orb at his current targets, deals magic damage, and applies flux, and then if it's already a flux applied, it spreads. Pretty much he just sends a blast and then he sends another blast and it does damage. And his first cast won't be as AoE, but as he spam casts, they'll be AoE around his thing. It only spreads once, it's not gonna like spread to the whole front line. So at most it's like a 1 hex AoE, but it ramps up a bit. Garen, he spins around and he gains durability. So he's like not like he can be tanky. I can balance the numbers to make it so that like his damage scales with health or something like that, or he just doesn't do that much damage. But right now he can kind of go either way. But yeah, he does AoE damage over 3 seconds. Plain and simple. Akshan. This one is a bit more interesting. Akshan passively applies marks every 3 attacks. He does bonus magic damage. His active is basically current Cogmaw, where he gets the extra on hit. Akshan's attacks fire an additional shot, and the shot does bonus AD and is considered an attack. So basically, it's extra damage, but also extra proccing of his passive. And this is based on just Akshan's actual passive in the league. Master Yi, this is probably one of the more problematic designs in the sense that like it's like not ideal representation for Master Yi to use his W when I think people would want to see Master Yi do Master Yi things. However, I need to find stuff that fits within the skin line. So Master Yi, he heals over 3 seconds and he slashes at nearby enemies once per second. Yeah. So using his W is not like ideal. However, there are ways to make it look kind of cool, kind of satisfying. So this one, like he's like meditating, but he has like the like psychic slashes that damage nearby enemies. I think with good spell effects, you can make it not disappointing. Even though he is pretty much a tank, and I don't think tank Master Yi is what people would think of. Karthus. Karthus is just using his Q. Blast at his current target, that detonates after 0.5 seconds. Deals magic damage to all enemies within 1 hex. Doubles when only one target is struck. It is straight up Karthus Q. I was kind of thinking about how to mess with his mana cost to go with the actual auto sack pattern that Karthus normally does in like jungle, where he would Q auto like that attack like that in TFT is like it's very balanced. Like I'd have to make it a 25 mana cost, but that's like way too low. And it would be like I'd have to like really drastically lower the numbers, but like I mean honestly that is something that can be done. Probably a bad idea. Like specifically you have to have blue buff and then you have to do that. And he perfectly recreates that pattern. But then I have to make it do like no damage. Eh. That's a later problem. I'm kinda down to do that. Scion. This is Scion passive. His W this is just his W, both parts of it. Uh so 80 mana. He gains max health whenever he scores a takedown. His Gensler's shield lasts 4 seconds at the end of the duration. It does magic damage to adjacent enemies. This shield will probably scale with max health. So this is just straight up Scion W. That said, so far none of these spells have existed in TFT. So yeah, technically original. Victor, I think this is one that has already existed. I think this was like a 2 cost. I don't know. I don't play the sets, but Victor throws his Q. This is his Q. He throws the draining device at his current target, dealing magic damage. He gains a shield of equal value to the ally nearest to that enemy for 3 seconds. His next attack was bonus damage. So this is like his. Yeah, it's just his Q. He gets the thing, like the Q projectile, and then he gets the powered auto. I don't really recall what, because this is like very similar to a very problematic version of Oriana that I remember. Riot said that they hated the design for, and she got reworked. I don't remember what the original design was. I do know what the recent design, like what they fixed, but I'm kind of wary of like the shielding aspect. However, I think it's okay. I don't know if this like is closer to the solution or to the problem. But I don't see problems with this design. Yeah, I don't. The point, what I'm trying to say is I don't remember what made the original thing bad. So I don't know if this is like also bad by making the same mistake, or if this is just fine. And I think it's fine. Leona, this is a reprint of like one cost Leona that has existed multiple times. However, I also added some damage, some damage reflection. This might be a bad idea. I might remove it, but at least for now, it is here. It is like considered. But yeah, she creates a barrier on herself, reducing damage for 4 seconds. And this is flat vindication. This isn't like percent. So I do want to make that clarification. Lastly, we have Warwick. So Warwick is has he has an interesting story in that uh I was originally considering either Warwick or Olaf for the spot, but then I realized that both of them have very similar designs in terms of what their abilities are. Both of them have had one cost versions or two cost versions that are like basically the same thing. So I kind of combined the two and I put them on Warwick. But this is basically a combination of one cost Olaf and one or like two cost Warwick. So Warwick is like kind of an aggressive version of like those designs. Warwick, he passively heals on every attack. For every 1% of his missing health, he gains attack speed. This is so this is like Olaf, except it's based on the target's missing health, not his own. So that's like a bit of a this is an aggressive version of that. Additionally, he also has an active, and it's like not that crazy, but it's like I mean it's just something. He bites his targets, dealing magic damage, and he heals. Now, okay, so he is an off. He can tank, but I don't think he's like expressly meant to be a main tank. However, right, I can adjust it either way. So I'm still not sure, but I think it's okay because we have. I think this is comparable to like these units. But I think this design is okay. MF. So even though she's like the leader of her vertical traits, I kind of like one of the original designs I had for this theme was to use MFW and passive. So this spell is just MFW and passive, but like you have to like tune it a little bit. So for 6 seconds, MF alternates attacks between her current target and the nearest enemy, and her attacks gain bonus physical damage, and she gains attack speed. This is like pretty close to like current LeBlanc, except she's AD and it's like her actual auto attacks. Like that's pretty much what this is. Because MF passive in League, she does bonus damage when she attacks a new target. So in order to attack a new target in TFT, you'd have to just like make her like you'd have to force her to make target a new thing because like otherwise units are just gonna target the same units That's just how the units are designed to act. But yeah, so basically she's just using her W and she's proccing her passive. But you can give her like a cool animation, and you can make her like actually like properly dual wield her two guns and like alternates and stuff like that. But yeah, Diana. This is Diana passive, and then this is like I don't know. So Diana passively, like every third attack deals bonus magic damage, in an arc. So like not like pure, not completely AOE, but like in like three hexes in front of her. And then the active is just gain a shield and attack speed. Pretty simple. She's like not supposed to be like a carry, but she can carry a little bit. That's what she has the attack speed for. But she's also like I don't know, she's like in this in between, and I can balance her either way. I think this is like kind of close to set 11 Diana, which was like not really a tank, but also not really a carry, but like you could kind of play her either way. Because there was definitely a version of that Diana where either one was well, like not at the same time, but like where you would play some comps where you'd play her as a tank and some where you'd play her as a carry. Riven, same kind of design. Uh, she gains a shield and she launches her wave of energy in front of her. This is what her E and then her R recast. Yeah, she's like not supposed like she can carry, but she's not like designed around that. She's not like really a tank, but she can do that. That said, as I like update a lot of these, I would kind of make these units in purple, which like the purple's like the off tank. I am going to make them lean more in one direction than the other, but for now, I'm just this is fine. Jinzhou, this one's more pure tank. This is pretty much current set Jarvan, except instead of a shield, you get durability. Because it kind of like represents the Jinzhou ult. But it's like, it's the same thing. It's, yeah. I mean, in all honesty, like, current J4 having that spell makes less sense than, I mean, like it's just straight up, like, they took it from Jinzhou, but then they put J4 in the sets, because I think, just because of the skin line theme, and, like, they're both, like, Lance users, so, like, it kind of, like, that, I think that's the rationale. But like the point is that spell belongs to Jinzhou, so let's give that spell to Jinzhou. Taric, surprisingly this spell has not existed on Taric yet, but like this is he heals himself and is near his ally, and he is next to two attacks, gain attack speed. Well, what nearest? Nearest is awkward. I can change this now to something. Nearest is like so weird. Like heal one ally, but it's like the one next to him. Let me get AoE. Yeah, this might be problematic. Maybe I just do this so that he can actually be a tank. But yeah, this is basically him using his Q and his passive. This is similar to set 10 Taric, except that one shielded himself. This one heals. Otherwise, it's like the same thing. But it's weird that yeah, but this is more accurate to Tarek in that his actual gameplay pattern is like he's doing this. Like you're using your Q to get his passive, and yeah. I could do something with his mana cost and like lower it a little bit. I don't know. I'll play with that later because there might be a world where I make this like he's a spam caster. That'd be pretty interesting. Nidalee, this is our dots champion of the sets. I don't know why I decided this. I do know why, and it's because of the I designed the La Illusion trait, and I realized that this would have like really good synergy with a dots champion, and the only like I didn't want to make the dot champion Renata, or like at least the only dot champion, so I made Nidalee this, and I decided to use her W, which seems like pretty wrong, but like honestly, it low key kind of works. So Nidalee is just flooding her traps beneath the units, and it just activates into those dots for like over time. It's just the same design that exists in like every set. But what's unique about this is that Nidalee, like I said, she has access to La Illusion, meaning she'll automatically burn, so she's never gonna need Morello. So you can pretty much give her the blue buff, Gunblade, like Archangels, or like that, or you can give her Void Staff, or like because now that's also an option. But yeah, Katarina. This is a reprint of Set 6 Katarina. This is the Raditz Katarina. Yeah, it's the same spell. She blinks behind the enemy with the lowest health within 3 hexes and slashes an AoE, dealing magic damage. For each enemy killed with this ability, she gains 20 mana. Uh, so I don't remember the context of the thing. I do remember that she never built blue buff, but I don't remember what blue buff looked like back then. Wait, actually, I don't remember what she built. I remember she built IE for a game. It might have been actually, it might have been IE blue buff Spark. I don't remember. But the point is, a lot of us has changed. I gotta make some adjustments. I increase her mana cost just in case she's ends up being broken, but I mean, it's hard to tell. However, I do definitely think this is a reprintable spell, so I think I'll give her the chance to do so because that was a pretty fun Katarina. So yeah. Speaking of reprints, this is a reprint of 2-cost Lucian. The difference is I made it to both do magic damage. However, that might change. So the original design is that one auto does magic damage and one does physical damage. Okay, what his spell does, he dashes away from the current target and then he quickly attacks twice. And like I said, these do bonus magic damage. In the original design, it does one physical, one magic. I don't really know which is. I don't like the idea of them being different, but like also, I'm not really sure if I want it's to end up being a hybrid champion. I don't know. It's kind of tricky because I can also just make the bonus magic damage like low and make him physical, which is like the more reasonable approach, I think. Yeah, this was a really good spell, I think, as a 2-cost. I think as a 3-cost, because I think this was a 3-cost and set 6.5. But in the other versions, it was a 2-cost. I think it's better as a 2-cost. Jace. Uh, he's a tank. He gains armor and magic resist, and then he knocks back his targets. Pretty unique. It's a pretty unique mechanic in the sense that like it's hard counters certain comps with like solo frontline, which is something I talked about for a long time with different units that have knockback effects. But yeah, but like for actual tank value, he gains resists, so there's that too. And he's also mana locks him for a little bit, so that's pretty good. He's not spam casting. Talia. So this is interesting that I'm bringing back stuff that doesn't really have a place being brought back, but like it fits, and I'll make it work somehow. Passive: if an enemy unit is knocked up, Talia throws a crystal shard at them, dealing magic damage. This is identical to Set 9 Talia. However, this Talia does not have a knockup. So, and I don't plan for her to have a knockup. However, this set has a ton of knockups in other units. So this is like a not meant to be like played around like every time, but like if you have like a spot to play, I don't know. I am not designing this with the idea of that being a line, like a main comp. Yeah, but it is an option. Active Talia just uses her Q. So this is like, I guess similar to set 7 Talia. Maybe it was Lagoon. Um, but yeah, that one was 3. So this is 5. This is just, I mean, this is the same spell otherwise. And then that like balance wise, the shard that she's throwing at them is like one of these. So like it's gonna do less damage additionally, but then like I said, in this set there's a lot of knockups. There's a lot of short knockups. There's a lot of like there's a lot. So I can't make this too strong. Cause if I wanted to, I would have just given her knockup. But like I don't want. This is like a an allusion to that previous Talia. It's an homage. It's not meant to be like a core mechanic. The core mechanic is just directive. And like I could have made this a hero augment, but like making hero augments for units that it already carries is like not very nice. Oriana. Oriana spends her ball towards her current targets to emit an electric pulse that does magic damage to nearby enemies and shields any allies nearby. She also calls back her ball to grant herself and adjacent allies attack speed for 4 seconds. So, this is like kind of similar to set 13 Renata, except it only shields the allies that are directly by the units that were hit, but also she gives herself attack speed, which does two things. It's like support value, but also it mana locks her. For like mana locks her every time, so she's not gonna spam cast. So yeah, like even if she's not shielded, she will be mana locked. So yeah, this is more of a more of a supportive unit, but it'll have a similar role. But this also like gives her a lot more freedom to for balance. Callista. This is one of the more creative spells, I think. Passively marks her nearest ally at the start of combat as her Oath Sworn, and if the unit dies, she just picks a new one. Active, she gains attack speed for 6 seconds, and that during that time, both Callista and her Oathsworn store a percentage of damage dealt to enemies as a combined value. If either of them damages a unit that would be killed by that stored, like basically, it's basically 3-cost Callista that has her Rend system. She stores the spears, and then if they reach the if you get enough spears in them that it would kill them, she kills them. However, this is only in that 6 second duration, so you have a small window, but you have an ally to help you do it. And this works for either ally, so I think one thing I might do is well, basically this is 3 cost Callista, except she has a buddy. She's playing with a buddy. And you can do interesting things with this because you can pair her with a unit that has backline access. Which that might be a bad idea. That might be like too crazy, but I mean that's just something to keep in mind. Like that is an idea of all time. But like you give her something that jumps backline, and then you have suddenly like you just guarantee one shot the enemy carry. Fizz, Fizz basically uses his E from League. He I don't know, leaps to his current target. Dashes. I don't know, whatever. Like it's his E. He uses his E. He like sticks his tridents on his current target, and he E's over them. Like that's what the spell is. I don't know how to word that's. I don't know this, but like he uses his E and specifically lands on the other side of the target. Also, is this even the right spell? I don't know. I'll take a look at that. Because originally I had Fizz use his Q, but I switched it to his E. But in order to work with the Devastator trait, however, that's something that might change. So, yeah. Rumble. This was a yeah. This is a spam shielder. This is like similar to set 12 Mordekaiser, except he never really did that. But like, I don't know. Rumble shields himself, and then he fires a harpoon. He fires harpoons, reducing their magic damage by 15, or their magic resist by 15. The design goal was to make like some find a way to get this to proc more often, so that Rumble would be a unit that like you can play around him like reliably, reducing the front line. The problem is that like I can't really give him a shield or the ability, or I can give him a heal. So I can only like it doesn't really make sense. So I'd have to give him a shield, but that mana locks him, so I'm not really gonna spam cast. So even if I lower his mana cost, like I lowered it to 40, but like he's not really gonna cast that often because he's gonna be mana locked. Unless the shield is like really shit. But if that's the case, then he's also not tanky. So Rumble's spell is pretty subject to change. But yeah, that was the goal. He's a frontliner. He's supposed to be a tank. He's supposed to be a tank that reduces the front line's magic resist. I don't know if I just make him use like his Q or something and do that, but like I also have to be mindful of Blight Angel existing with that. So that's why like I also have to like he's supposed to be a tank. And I can make his damage like really low, but like that's like I mean it's an option honestly. Pike. So this is a reprint of set 7 Elise. So that Elise would like kill something and then jump up and then jump down and then kill something else. This Pike is the same thing except he's just underwater. So Pike stabs his targets, dealing physical damage. If he kills his target, he descends into the depths, becoming untargetable, and then he resurfaces near the enemy with the lowest health, and then he does that again. So he just stabs them again, and then if yeah. He just resets until he doesn't kill this unit. I mean okay, so that design is like really like a balanced nightmare material, but like I really like that spell. Like I really like that at least. And like obviously the counter is CC, but yeah. With Pike being a swashbuckler and an abyssal, I think this also becomes way scarier than that Elise, who at least I mean actually that Elise was a shapeshifter, which is a tank trait. But this Pike has swashbuckler, which is a form of damage mitigation, and he has abyssal, which is a tank trait. So I'd have to take a look at like I'd have to be very careful with the numbers. But I do think it's possible to have cool spells and like all this stuff together and it be like you just have to be very competent with your balance choices. So and this is an obvious risk, but I think it can be done. Vi, this is another interesting spell. So she charges her Q. She charges her gauntlets for 0.5 seconds. She gains a shield. And she charges in a straight line at the furthest target within 3 seconds, stopping at the first enemy she collides with. She knocks them off, dealing physical damage, increasing per hex traveled. So basically, if there's something in front of her, she's just a tank. She doesn't do that much damage, and she gets a shield. If she is positioned well, she can threaten backline carries. But it's like very like specific targeting and positioning. So this is a very high skill mini game to play with her, with like positioning her, because she's gonna be balanced around playing as a tank. But uh, like I said, if there's any gaps in the front line and she like wraps the right way and targets the right units, she can instead dash to them and just pretty much one shot them. I do need to be. This is like I think this one's a bit more scary, and admittedly, this is one of the units most likely to disappear. However, I do think it is definitely a really cool spell. Like I will give it that. Like to use Vi's Q in that way. However, but it might change. Tom Kench, he passively stores the damage he takes as gray health, and then when it's active, he just shields himself, and he shields himself for the base health the gray health value, and then after the shield expires, any remaining shield value is converted to healing. Yeah, this might be too much, but like, basically he is using his E and his passive, and he's very tanky. He's as pure of a tank as you can get. This guy doesn't do like any damage. Nasus. This is another one of their more creative spells, I think. So Nasus uses his E, except this like is pretty unique. He unleashes a spirit fire in a 1 hex AoE at the location of his current target for 10 seconds, or until there's no enemies left in the AoE. It does magic damage, and it shreds those inside. Each time a unit dies while inside the AoE increases in size, and Nasus heals. So he's like a debuffer tank. He's not gonna do like a ton of damage, but he can be hitting a ton of enemies at the same time. I do expect this. I mean, I can design him to be a carry. However, it would be a little like I have to be very careful with the numbers. I'd rather just design him as a tank, give him like health scaling and stuff. But he has a lot of possible impact. I don't know. I think this is just a cool design. The idea of like he drops the AoE and it can you can like increase it like a channel. Like it's not really a channel, but like it's acts like one. And based on the fight RNG, you can potentially have massive AoEs. And yeah. Zyra, this is 2 cost Zyra, except reworked as a 3 cost because I think that's a bit better. This is just a combination of 2 cost Zyra plus like sets 9 Quinn or sets 11 Alune, where she summons vines in a row or column with the most enemies. She does magic damage splits between all enemies hit, and she stuns them. So you get the effects of both. Like it's basically a loon, but mana cost higher, and she stuns. Yeah, and she also doesn't have like the passives and stuff. But this is probably a good way to approach reprinting this spell. I feel like just doing this thing ends up being boring. And I do like a lot of people hate this existing, but I'm okay with. I never really had a problem with Zyra existing, like this spell. Like I don't. I think backline access to CC is like, or access to backline CC is like pretty good for the game, to be quite honest. The only thing is that with Zyra being a 3 cost, it makes her more likely to end up on a late game board, which then it becomes a problem if everyone plays this unit. So to compensate, you might have to like this. Like it becomes like I do have to be very careful with this. Like this is subject to change. It probably will be changed, but to what? I don't know. Because I think this part's a little boring. And I don't want this to be like a 150 mana cost thing for it to be balanced. Like I don't want this number to get too like I already increased this a lot, but I don't want it to get too crazy. I think this version could be okay. I'm willing to increase this a little bit more, but too much, it's just like it's a bit much. Ziggs, he is just using his ult. He throws a bomb at the target. After short delay, it lands, dealing magic damage in a 2 hex AoE. Reduced per hex from the epicenter. This works like Jinx Rocket from Set 13, except it's smaller, just 2 hexes. But it's a big AoE, but it does most of the damage to the main target. And then enemies that are far away aren't going to take that much damage. Ash, she is. This is a pretty interesting aspect, I think. Passively does bonus 2 damage to when attacking chilled enemies. Uh, this is sort of meant to represent her passive, but like it kind of more closely represents the interaction she has with that one rune, that one domination rune, or what it's called. Sudden impact? No, no, no. I don't know, the one that gives true damage, but like the one that like is like not like kind of good on Ash, but like not really. But yeah, that's what that is. Her active sends to scouts. It's her E. They explode on her current target and the largest clump, and it does some magic damage, and they are chilled. So this is a spell. Like she's a caster, but like she's not meant to be built around her spell. She's meant to be built on her attacks. Her attacks are way too enable her damage. I could probably like lower this, and like I make her damage like low, but she's meant to be an auto attacker. Like she's meant to be like a Gensu's user. Like Gensu's like Death Blade or something. Nautilus. This is another unit with a knockup. Uh, magic damage. Enemies within 2 hexes. Knock them up, pull them together. This is set 9.5 Nautilus. However, I might change this spell. Because it's too similar to this one. I mean, okay, I will change the spell. I don't know what I'm going to change it to. This is the kind of a placeholder. Kale passively shoots her waves. It deals physical damage to all units it passes through. It does physical damage. It's probably going to change, but I have to like do it, like it's not just changing Kale. I have to change a lot of other units for this to be able to be magic damage. Active, she heals herself and her lowest percent health ally, gives them both attack speed. For Kale, this attack speed lasts for the rest of combat. She's like an infinite scaler, like it doesn't scale like super fast, but it's like technically infinite scaling. It kind of like references like her like ascending, like she always has, but like I don't want to like really lean too much into that. But like a little bit of scaling is fine. I guess I don't think this is gonna be like a crazy attack speed. It's probably gonna be like 20% attack speed. Rel. So Rel is using her ult. She Yeah, so she stuns adjacent enemies for 1 second, and she creates a gravitational field around her for 3 seconds. That deals magic damage and steals resists. So I think this is a pretty creative spell because it uses Varel's passive, and it's like kind of a unique thing. I don't know what the numbers. I don't know what the correct numbers to do for this because we've never seen something like this in TFT. But uh, it is an interesting idea of stealing resists. And, like obviously that has existed, but like not in this way as like a just a normal frontline tank. Like I think we've seen this with like Rek'Sai. I think there's a Rek'Sai that did this. I know Trundle was like other stats. I don't think it was resists. It was like AD or something. But yeah. Lulu. This is another one I'm pretty proud of. Lulu sends picks to the lowest percent health ally and shields them. Also, if you know, there's a lot of support abilities. I will cut down on some of them. But, I mean, this is probably one that I won't. And shields them. She and picks fire and magic bolts towards Lulu's current targets, each one dealing magic damage to all enemies hit. So you're basically firing two bolts coming from different directions, and they converge on the current target. So the target's going to be hit. She's going to be getting hit by both bolts. But then you have these different paths, depending on which ally, where the ally that was shielded is. So you have like a really interesting spell shape. And I think that's a really, I think that's a pretty cool spell to have in the game. Because I don't think we've seen something like that before. Singed, passively covered in deadly fog that deals magic damage to the adjacent enemies. He just poisons stuff like that. In terms of the actual like balance and stuff for TFT, it's like similar to set 13 Amumu. Like it just does some damage. It doesn't like anything crazy. Active, he empowers himself for 5 seconds. He gains a bunch of stats. This is supposed to like represent his ult. At the end of combat, like he keeps half of them. So like these numbers are gonna be that big, and then when he keeps them, it's not gonna be that big. But He's supposed to be like he's like constantly taking this brew. So yeah, I could do away with this entirely, and I might. But for now, I'll leave it here. Four costs. Uh, yeah. Gangplank. Uh, passive. Gain a charge of black powder on each takedown. Active. He fires a cannon blast at his current target that explodes in a 1-hex AoE, dealing bonus true damage to enemies in the center. Expends all black powder charges to fire additional blasts at random enemies for 50% damage. Basically, it's just a cannon blast in front of him, and if he gets a lot of takedowns, his next spell will just shoot a bunch more. I don't know how to tune this to like maybe like gains 2 or something, and it's like I don't know. But like the design I want for him is to have like a bunch of cannon blasts. So I don't know if like this is like the way it needs to look, but like basically he gets resets. It's not even resets, but like he gets rewarded for getting takedowns, and then when he participates in killing enemies, he gets to fire more blasts. So it's like it's a snowball mechanic, but it's not a reset. Galio. This is set 6 Galio, except it's not he's not a character. He isn't. It's just a CC ability. It's just he's the generic CC unit of this set. He's the yeah. Uh, he becomes invulnerable for 1 second as he leaps into the sky before crashing down. Enemies within a large radius take magic damage and are knocked up. I think an interesting mechanic is this invulnerability for 1 second is like a pseudo tank trick. Like this is like pseudo tankiness. So Riot has recently been looking for ways to make the CC units actually have actual tank value. So like last set we had Elise get a heal. This set we have Sejuani get more resists. So this is a different approach. He is invulnerable for 1 second as he channels. So like I don't know. I think this is like an interesting way to execute on that. I don't know if it's too much, but I could also like lower this to like 0.5 seconds or something like that. Or like some like you can't this can be played with a little bit. But the point is this has a lot of innate value that I think people wouldn't initially appreciate. So I do want to emphasize that. Ezreal. This is another one that I'm like really cooking, and I don't actually know if it's a good idea, but I really like the idea of it. Passive. Every time Ezreal casts a spell, his mana cost is lowered by 10. The first time his mana cost is reduced to 0, his attack is replaced by Mystic Shot, which is his spell, and his spell is replaced by a different spell. The next time he does that, that attack is replaced with the next spell. So his spell will get stronger, and after he casts a certain number of times, he will replace his attack with the spell. So his first spell is Q, which is just a projectile. It just does more damage. And it technically can miss, but I mean it does more damage. I mean I might make it like have like an AoE of components, kinda like his yeah, but like his W. But yeah, the point is like it's a basic upgrade, and then there's physical damage, and then this version is like his ult. So as this will only happen like late into combat, I think. where he replaces his auto attack in this as a spell. This is probably like only overtime, and like you need a specific setup for that to get to that point. At least that's the goal. I don't want this to be the like his main attack for at least at least not until overtime. But it would be pretty cool to have. And then this, like I said, this is his ult. After a slight delay, he fires a blast in a line that damages a bunch of enemies. Yeah, he's meant to be a Shojin user. Maybe Shojin gets used as like I don't know. This is like really tough to tune, but I really like this concept. Malzahar. This is just Malzahar ult. However, it's like supposed to be similar to Set 9 Lux, where it's like the laser. It just does the laser, and then if the target dies, it like retargets. This is Malzahar ult. It stuns instead. So the Lux, I think, reduced it magic resist. This does not do that. So this will do a little bit less damage, but it stuns. So it really gets screwing over that one enemy. And there's a bunch of units with like backline access slash a lot of mobility that are like annoying. So Malzahar will hard counter those, like he does in League. And yeah. Alistar, he gains durability and he does some damage around him for 4 seconds. And then at the end of the duration, he heals himself. This is like his R plus his passive. And it's actually like most of his abilities together except the CC abilities. I had this interesting dilemma where a lot of the units I had to fit all have like CC. So I had like Galio, but I also had Alistar, and I had Malphite here. And all of them have like really easy AoE knockup abilities, but I can't have every unit have AoE knockup, so I have to find ways to use their other spells to be tanks. To be forecast tanks. So yeah, this is that. Basically, he uses all his other abilities. Kassadin. This is Riftwalk Kassadin. He uses his ult. But this is... I kind of modeled this around current, like, set 14Z. And then I went from there. So instead of doing the damage to... So what Zed does is he damages all units he previously hit. This Kassadin doesn't do that, but instead he ramps. Riftwalk gains more base damage for the rest of combat. I wasn't sure what to do because Kassadin is a Witch Doctor, which already gives him AP, and he's Abyssal, which gives him damage amp. So I wasn't sure whether to give him one of those traits or just to do something like this. I still don't know if this is the best trait or best way to do that, but I think this is like fine. I think what I did, I made this number lower than if I had chosen AP or damage amp. But now he scales better with both AP and damage amp. So I think that's probably an okay decision. Gnar, this is set 1, and I think... I don't know what other set had this, but like, this is set 1 Gnar. He transforms into Mega Gnar for the rest of combat. He has this big like Gnar throw, like his ults in League. And then he stays in Gnar form permanently, so he only gets the throwing once. He gains max health and AD, and his ability is permanently replaced by Crunch, which is just he hops, he uses his Mega Gnar E, and it does AoE damage. He also gets some max HP. Malphite. This is not Malphite ult. This is another creative iteration on Malphite. So, passively, after he loses 20% of his max health, he slams the ground around him, dealing damage in a 1-hex AoE. So, this is like, this 20% max health includes stuff like shields and like healing and like whatever. So, like, this isn't only going to proc 5 times, it can proc more than 5 times. Then the active, he reconstructs himself, he gains a shield, and he slams around once per second. So yeah, this contributes to that. Originally, I was gonna make it so that reconstructing himself made he gain like permanent something, like permanent resist or something, but I feel like that's like a little annoying. So, I mean, I might give him something, but I don't know yet. Senna, she basically fires her Q. She fires a beam in the target of her, in the direction of her targets, dealing physical damage to all enemies hits and healing all allies hits. So Riot has been playing with the spell a lot, and it's kind of annoying to find the satisfying way to use this. I feel like most versions of Senna are like pretty boring, unless you just make like really super broken Sennas, like set 9 5-cost Senna. I feel like a lot of the other approaches are just like, super unsatisfying. Like as a Senna enthusiast. So I think realistically, the best approach is just to give Senna what she wants and just up her cost. So it's, Senna's a 4 cost, and she does her Senna things. And this spell is like kind of already existed. This is, I think, similar to set 6 Seraphine. It did damage AoE in a line, and she healed allies she hit. So I mean, the design is there, and obviously you can play with the mana cost to make it more or less balanced. Yorick. Uh, this one's a little interesting. He summons his maiden, and yeah, he's a summoner, but he's also a melee carry. Uh, who prioritizes attacking York's target. If maiden is already on the field, instead of summoning another one, she's just healed, and then York passively heals first the damage that maiden deals. I'm not sure whether I want to make York an AD or an AP champion. He currently can fit in either way, and whether he is one or the other just depends on uh how other units turn out. But yeah, this is like basically 2 units in one. Neither of them are pure tanks, but they're both like kind of like tanky. Like they'll heal quite a bit. So yeah. Xerath is just using his Q, pretty much. He channels for 0.5 seconds and then fires a beam, dealing magic damage to enemies hits. I added this just to have give him a little bit of flair. However, he might change. This might be changed. Uh, yeah, so he does more damage based on the unit's missing health. It's kind of like an execute. That said, it really depends on how other units around him. Because I mean, this spell is generic enough that I can kind of do whatever, but it really depends on what the other units surrounding him are, and like itemization and stuff. Because I want to have like enough like blue buff and Ginsu's and Shojin and stuff, and like different archetypes of spells. And this spell can pretty much be any of them. Like I can lower this like super low, or I can raise it super high, just depending on what's needed. So depending on how other units turn out, will determine what that looks like. Draven. This is one of the more I think this is a cool spell. I'm not sure how well it fits within the game because this isn't like normal 4-cost Draven. This is a more unique spell. This will more closely. I think the closest thing to this in League is Yunara's W. Like the new champion has her W, which is an interesting mechanic. But what I'm more basing it off of is probably the same thing that spell was based off. It's based off of like a 7 from Deadlock, his electric balls. Like it's the same mechanic, and I'm pretty sure it's the same inspiration. For Raven does that with his E, uh, where they keep spinning around. They do damage, and then they'll like slowly pass through the targets, and then they'll try to hit the back line. But that's basically what it is. It's basically his E, except it behaves like Yunara's W. I think it's a pretty cool spell idea. The only thing is like it's not even a problem with the spell. The problem is with I'm not sure if I actually have the space to keep Draven in the set just because of trait web problems. But if I can, I will because I like this spell a lot. I think it'd be a really cool inclusion. Lastly, we have Vagar. This is, I mean, this is a pretty basic spell. Passive, Vagar. When he kills an enemy, he gains 1 AP permanently. Nothing too crazy, but he's a 4 cost, so you can't have anything too crazy. Uh, in terms of scaling. Active, calls down a massive dark matter. After 1 second, does magic damage to enemies hit. This is his W. That said, this 1 second might be a little annoying because you might make him miss. And then the balance levers can be problematic. However, like this is again similar to Xerath. I can change stuff. Just based on how other things fit. These two on their own aren't problematic. However, it's just how they interact with like the other units in the set. Like I'll just make adjustments according to that. Lastly, we have the 5 costs. These 5 costs, I mean, I don't know. Some of them are cool, some of them are. I mean, I think most of these are pretty cool, but they might be changed. Like, there's a lot of things that might be changed. Start with Ramus. Yeah, this thing is I don't know. Like the concept I had came from like I don't even know, like a dream or something, but like a long time ago, like way before I like started at least like a year or two ago. But my idea was that Ramus would he'd brace himself and he would summon these saws and they do damage. And the more I like tried to like optimize it, the more I like looked at like similar units that performed a similar role. So I thought of units like Terra from set 8, who was a 5 cost dragon that like kind of did the same thing. So what Ramus does, he gains resists, and then while he gains those resists, he summons saws that like acts like set 6 Victor ult. They deal like AoE damage to like a bunch of units, and then the difference is that his damage scales with his armor and magic resist. So it's pretty much a combination of set 6 Victor and set 8, no, set 7 Terra, like the dragon. And I think that's a really, really cool spell that I want to make work no matter how possible. Like, I will make changes if necessary, but like, I really, really like that concept. Where he's like, because I want a unit that's like a Gargoyles BT user. I really, really like that idea. Next we have Renata. This one, so I mean, okay, Renata's like, I based on her skin line, I really wanted her to be a 5 cost. However, making her a 5 cost is like really like her spells are like too crazy to be balanced, so I have to be very careful. But like, it might just be a numbers thing. So this Renata uses her ult. Uh, Fires a 3 hex wide weight of toxins towards the most enemy in the line. Enemies hit will take magic damage over 2 seconds and become berserk for the same duration, causing them to target the closest unit, ally or enemy, which is the same way it works in League. Which in TFT, that is like really crazy. I might make it so like, oh, they can't cast or something during this, or like, I don't know. I have it a really high mana cost. This is balanceable and this is doable, but it's like really difficult, I think. But it's such a cool spell. And the thing is, the other idea is to use like, because she also has her W, which is also equally problematic because it's like basically a revive, and in TFT that's like not very balanced. So that is like Renata has very little to work with if you don't use either of those. So I kind of just went with her ult because at least that's like pretty cool. Next we have Vayne. Vayne, she tumbles away and she becomes invisible. This is basically like she's using her ult and she's tumbling, but when she attacks after she tumbles, she fires like four bolts from like the sky, and these like I don't know how to describe it, but like this is like but like basically it's pretty close to set 11 Irelia in Spectacle, where like these bolts like come from the sky and then like they all like converge onto her targets, and like she like does this pretty often. So like she turns invisible and then she fires these massive bolts from like a bunch of directions towards her targets. I don't know, it's kind of hard to describe, but I think it's a really cool execution. I think Vayne is one of the hardest units to make a 5 cost spell for. So I was pretty happy to do this. Because one of the things about 5 cost is that they have to have like a certain level of visual spectacle. Like they need to be like pretty cool. And Vayne's spell is like really her design is really simple. Like visually, it's really simple. And like a lot of the cool stuff we do with Vayne is like displays of mechanics, not like her design. Like her spells don't really like visually do much. So like finding a way to like make Vayne stand out is like a challenge, but I think this is a like I don't know if I described it well enough, but like if I had the means to execute on this and like create this spell, like I think this is a really good design. At least visually. Maybe not like balance wise it's like okay. Because the problem is that she's invisible and well, like that like this might be a problem because she's also a backliner. I could make her not invisible. Like that's possible. Like that is an option. But I mean I'd have to see in terms of like the game. Like that'd be like you actually take that out in like testing. Quinn. So this is like kind of close to like set 13 Caitlyn, like kind of more targeted. Passive Valor will mark the unmarked units that has dealt the most damage, and then active he will attack each of them and then perform a strike, which is it's just an AoE blast. These blasts do less damage, but like they're larger AoE, and that's pretty much it. She's not doing like a ton of damage, but she's like hitting a lot of like in a big AoE around all these units. Next we have Kled. Clyde basically has like it's basically his ult plus his passive, like his Scarl. So this wall of text is just Scarl and describing how that works. While he has Scarl, he uses his ult, and if he doesn't have Scarl, he summons Scarl. And that's pretty much it. Blitzcrank. This is pretty much 2 cost Blitzcrank that pulls, except you have two different forms. You have one that's more tanky, and one that does more damage. Like he does the carry himself. So like if you have carry items, you go with the damage one, and if you don't have carry items, you go with the tanky one. You also have to be right back. Blitzcrank. So this is like I said, this is like two cost Blitzcrank. He pulls the furthest enemy into range. It's just his Blitzcrank hook. The Paragon one is the more tanky one. He shields himself, and his next basic attacks knocks them up after he pulls them, so it's like more CC. And allies in range will prioritize attacking the enemy he hooks. The Rogue, he pulls them, and then he instead of like the shield and the this, he instead gives himself more attack speed and more damage. This is more of a carry centric one. If his target dies, he gains mana. So it's a more aggressive version. Next we have Nocturne. Nocturne, he has his ult, but what this does, so when he casts, he uses his trait, makes him ult, so he gets the paranoia effect. But what his spell actually does, he flies at the enemy with the lowest health, dealing physical damage, and for 6 seconds, his attacks deal damage to it in an AoE, which heals him a bit. This is a pretty crazy unit. However, I can play with the number, so it's not that bad. Evelyn. This is another one where I cooked, I think. Evelyn marks the 3 nearest enemies over 2 seconds. She launches the dart at each of them, charming them for 2 seconds, and launches deadly spikes at them over the duration, dealing magic damage. Basically, she's charming 3 enemies at a time, and then she's using her Q, like, to pop it. And then as the charm like got popped and they're walking towards her, uh, after the end of the duration, she ults away. So technically, you're not gonna guarantee to hit 3 enemies, but you're probably gonna get hit like 2. You're guaranteed at least 1, but then like she ults away. So does AoE damage, and it does a lot of damage increased to enemies that are low. She teleports away. This synergizes with her passive that makes her regen. When she teleports away, she's probably gonna drop aggro, so she will heal. So yeah, she is an assassin with CC, and she's a. Honestly, I think this is a really cool spell, but it's like a lot at the same time. Next we have the stowaways. So like this is like so stowaways like are gonna have like 2 traits. They're gonna have their stowaway, and then they're gonna have a unique trait. And what these are, this is I haven't developed them yet. I know what they're gonna do, but I haven't like put that in the doc. So some of the things I plan to change over the next few days and stuff. So this isn't perfect. There's a lot of things I need to fix. There's a lot of like even though I have done a lot. I am aware of a lot of things, so I gotta develop the stowaways and the quests and stuff. Gotta improve the mechanics. Uh, Trait web stuff I need to fix. La Illusion doesn't have really good frontline. It has just Gnar pretty much, which is not very good. Armada doesn't have enough carries, I don't think. I need to do some trait balancing. Elegance has like too much overlap, but it's like, I don't know, it's really weird. I need to fix it. I might need to give them another frontliner. Dreadway has it's like all frontliners, but the problem is that the backline like it's not a problem in the numbers. The problem is that the backliners are specifically a 1 cost and a 5 cost. And like that is like kind of weird. Like yeah, I think they have to move something, or I'd have to swap out units. Cause like it's okay that there's only 2 backliners. The problem is that, like I said, that it's like one of the first units you get and like the last unit you would get. Abyssal doesn't have backliners. It doesn't need backliners, but I need to like just keep that in mind. And then this is like a problem. This is more like I can fit One of the things I'm looking to do is probably remove something from somewhere and add it into Desperado. I think the traits that are pretty good are like Crystalline, Harbinger, Fate Maker. I think for the most part I'm not gonna touch them. I want at least I don't want to change them. I think this is perfectly fine. I think the trait design is good here. The only thing might be if I what I do with Kale. I need to see what this is because it's really awkward if I do like AP, 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 like where the 1, 2, 3 costs are all AP and then these two are AD, which is why I made this AD, but it doesn't really change much either. But I don't think it's that problematic. I can fix it. And then what else? Yeah, these are some units I would rather not comp. Like well, I don't know. Like I'm not gonna change. Some units I might remove, and I have to like basically I have to figure stuff out. There's just problems, but there's a bunch of solutions I looked. Some more promising than others, but I do have options. Uh, Traits do need to have their certain characteristics. They need to be balanced around each other. Even though I have all this stuff and they all like fit, they need to like actually like fit well compared to each other and be balanced. So there's still a lot of work to do. And I have to be careful with what skin lines I choose because not everything works. Some have less options than others, so I need to plan around the harder to balance ones, and then I pick from the more flexible ones. So like Desperado, for instance, there's like so many High Noon skins, I can choose anything. But like Armada, there's only one other skin I can use in the skin line, and there aren't that many similar skin lines, so I need to be very careful. And like I'd also have to like look through other skin lines to find anything similar, but it's not very easy. But that is basically a breakdown of my set. This is an early 1.0 version. Uh, I do hope to iterate on this. I don't know, maybe on stream. I'm not sure how I feel, but I did want to show off what I've been working on. So that's what this is. So yeah, that's all I've got. I don't think my voice can handle much more. So yep, those who still here, thanks for watching. Hopefully I can continue. I can work on this on stream, and then those who want to watch and maybe contribute